Good morning, welcome to CATEX TV. My name is Frank Fortunato. Today is Thursday, September 13th, 2012. President Obama has pledged to bring justice to those who attacked the U.S. consulate and killed the American ambassador in Benghazi, Libya. He has sent a group of naval ships as well as about 50 members of the Marine Corps' anti-terrorism security team. They're specially trained to rapidly deploy to protect government workers overseas. He has pulled all non-essential personnel out of the main embassy in Libya. Also has issued the same instructions for the American embassy in Yemen, which has come under attack. There was also another attack at the American embassy in Cairo, although this time it did not penetrate the walls. Hillary Clinton condemned the attack as outrageous and shocking. The government is walking a very fine line here and has been clear that it is not blaming the Libyan people and that in fact they understand that it's a group of jihadists and extremists who have organized the attacks. In China, Xi Jinping, the vice president and heir apparent of China, who has disappeared for about 2 weeks now, has reappeared, sort of. He made some publicly quoted comments in a newspaper that is known to be controlled at times by the Chinese government. He has disappeared now for about 13 days amid swirling speculation about his health. His disappearance comes at a very sensitive time for China because they are about to undergo their quadrennial party meeting to pick the succession path. State media said, this is the quote that indicates that he's fine, quote, Mr. Jinping had expressed condolences on the death of an old party comrade, Wang Rong, end of quote. With that small sliver of information, the Chinese people are supposed to be reassured that their next in line is just fine. Dr. Richard Ward, the CEO of Lloyd, said that insurers could be caught up in fresh regulatory backlash as well as a whole lot of claims triggered by banking scandals such as the LIBOR rate rigging affair. Ward said that we always have to deal with the fallout of the actions of others and the regulators responding accordingly. He said you have the LIBOR scandal, all the stuff with Standard Chartered Bank in the U.S. That doesn't help restore the images of financial services in the eyes of the public and the politicians. The latest allegation by misconduct of the British banks has resulted in a payment by Standard Chartered of $340 million to settle allegations of wrongdoing by the New York regulator. And there also could be a very hefty insurance bill that would have to be paid on E&O policies maintained by banks that in fact may have been rigging the LIBOR scandal rates. Talanx, one of 3 major P&C insurance IPOs scheduled for this fall in Europe, has pulled its flotation plans because of lack of investor interest. The German reinsurance group, which is majority owned by Hannover Re, the 3rd biggest reinsurer, said potential shareholders demanded too great a discount on the valuation of the business. That's a polite way of saying they thought the proposed stock price was too high. Mark Zuckerberg, are you listening? Talanx Chief Executive Officer Herbert Haas said, we will currently pursue our strategy without an IPO. Some more numbers coming in from Hurricane Isaac down in the Delta region. An assessment's not final yet, but it appears that about $100 million in losses to Louisiana's row crop industry resulted from Isaac. Row is related to a shrimp product. There are some other losses. Sugarcane, for example, suffered a loss of about $60 million. They expect that, of course, it will revive back in the next year, but this is immediate delivery work that is going to be interrupted that they'll have to place claims for. If you've been reading Google periodically, you notice that there are wildfires in progress in the western United States. We haven't really been reporting on them because they seem to be relatively disparate. They're in California, they're in Colorado, there even is one in Oregon. Somebody has gone to the trouble of figuring out now that properties worth, get this number, $136 billion are now at high risk from wildfire damage in the western U.S. The city home to the most properties at risk from wildfires is in fact Los Angeles. They have $10 billion worth of homes in the high or very high wildfire risk category. California and Texas are the other two. Those 3 states The 3 states have properties. This would be California, Texas, and Colorado. The 3 states have properties with a combined value of $20 billion at very high risk of wildfires. Well, if you've been reading the papers, you know that Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has been blasting President Obama and the West for failing to set firm red line deadlines against Iran and their nuclear program. It's had an effect. After days of diplomacy, Russia and China have agreed to back an American-backed resolution at the UN demanding that Iran stop activities that could be used to make nuclear arms. Diplomats said on Wednesday that the agreement sent a unified message to Iran, but also hopefully would convince Israel that diplomacy was the real alternative to military force, and thus it would also prevent a nuclear confrontation. You might want to keep that in mind. Israel views a nuclear-armed Iran as a strategic threat, citing Iran's persistent calls for the destruction of the Jewish state. Well, they're right on that, of course, but it seems as if the sanctions might be beginning to work. And with the addition of the Chinese and the Russians into the mix, it stands a real possibility of finally putting an iron ring around Iran and ratcheting up the pain on Ahmadinejad. That's the news for today. If we have any breaking news, we'll come back and tell you. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you tomorrow.